Soraya. How's it going?
Hey Jeff, how you doing? Look at you all snazzy,
Yep,
colorful,
pants too.
and wearing pants.
First time
Woo!
in 15 months. I guess
Yeah, man.
that's a little bit too much information for past episodes.
Hey,
Hopefully
you know
nobody
what?
goes back.
Hey, if people are close listeners, they would have known. They would have known.
I mean, you can tell, right? And
Well, they see us from what the neck up. So,
yeah, right.
so today Jeff is the dapper, and I am in full summer mode.
Yes.
I'm wearing a t-shirt and uh I am wearing pants. I will say I am wearing pants.
both
Anyways,
both pantsed up.
woo! All right. Okay, so Jeff, you
Yes.
and I, for the longest time, have had this discussion, not a debate,
hmm
but it is a discussion that you favor the EP.
Yeah,
You love the EP format.
I do.
Why?
It's probably because my attention span can last for uh, a full EP. But Barbara Manning last week said something I thought was really interesting, and she talked about sequencing and making the audience want more. And that's how I feel with an EP. After listening to an EP, I always want more. So it's a little shorter than what I actually want, but it always makes me wanting more. And I don't know. I just like that 3 to 8 song kind of format. For me, I think I definitely believe it's has to do with my attention span, but I just love it. It's just like you just hit them, and usually they're strong. There's less songs, so they're all usually strong material. So I don't know.
Kind of reminds me of that line from That Thing You Do, where Tom Hanks is talking to the band. He goes, you play your song and you unplug before the applause dies out, and you leave them wanting more. So, Jeff's love for the EP has made us think about what are some of the EPs that we've enjoyed. We've talked about the ones from the Seminole Four of the
Yes.
Paisley Underground, but we wanted to expand that discussion. So, welcome to number one of a series on important EPs. So, Jeff, let's get started.
Let's get started.
Hi, this is Soraya.
And this is Jeff.
Our podcast is called Paisley Stage Raspberry and Rhyme,
a podcast where the two of us play music that we like and share anecdotes and background about the tunes.
We hope you'll join our conversation. And without further ado, agrubiar.
Let's get groovy.
And yes, we are starting with the Long Riders 10560. Now, Jeff, I can't tell, but can you tell me how many signatures are on that?
So this one I have 3 signatures that I got when we were at the Roxy. So Sid signed right here, and then
Right?
Greg immediately underneath it. And then you can hardly tell, but Stevens is kind of blended in with the tree right there.
So whose signature? Sorry. So Steve McCarthy's is in the tree?
Yeah, yep.
Okay.
Black on black kind of. So everybody that played on this record except for the bass player Des Brewer, which we'll talk about in a little
Yes.
bit. So yeah.
All right. Well, okay, so why don't you let our listeners know why this one?
Okay. So as you mentioned in our intro, we've covered the Seminole Four Bands EPs on an episode, which was really fun. So we
Yeah.
did Baroque Hoedown, the Dream Syndicate EP, Bangles EP, as well as Explosions in the Glass Palace by Rain Parade. But we wanted to expand it a little bit more and talk about some of the bands that are commonly um, associated with the Paisley Underground and what's come to be known as Paisley adjacent, right?
Right.
Um, I have a different opinion, especially with Green on Red and Long Riders, that they are part of
Yes.
the Paisley Underground. That's another discussion, but we wanted to include the Paisley adjacent bands and their EPs in a little series. So I thought it best to start off with the Long Riders because they're definitely commonly associated with the Paisley Underground in many ways. So there's a couple connections too
Right.
This EP, which was the band's first release, which came out in 1983 on PVC, the PVC label, is produced by, do you know?
The one and only Earl Mankey.
Earl Mankey at the Psychedelic Shack. So we've talked about Earl in regards to the 3 o'clock,
Hmm.
Permanent Green Light, and some other bands. So we're definitely fond of his production style. So that's a connection with
Absolutely.
some of the other bands, and we'll talk about it when we play some songs. But I love the sound
Yeah.
of the production.
Before we jump into the songs, I wanted to mention one quote about this EP, and you will all notice this time around that Jeff and I have kind of switched places now because we've selected songs. It's like a sandwich. We start with Jeff, then my picks, and then end with Jeff. So it's a Jeff's the bread, and I'm the,
You're
I
the
don't
good
know,
stuff.
PJ in the middle.
Yeah.
But I really, really like this quote because I think when people have a hard time with the Long Riders and being a social or trying to figure out where their place is, I think anyone who's a fan of the LA music scene in the early 80s and, seeing a lot of these bills where these bands were playing places, sometimes, Sid was living with Vicky and, other people. So these are people who knew each other, socialized, but also played bills. But I think sometimes people say, well, they're too country. But this quote just kind of sealed the deal. So it's a quote from a book called Country Roads: How Country Came to Nashville. And there's a musicologist, Brian Hinton, who's quoted in it. And about Long Riders, he says, the band's punkish roots are sweetened by banjo, steel guitar, and auto harp. And that Birdsian propulsion is firmly on the launch pad. They are not played gently, though, and the vocals are the very antithesis of Nashville cool. If Graham Parsons approached country with respect, this is a full tilt drunken assault. Okay, so in reality, what he's saying is Long Riders take country into a completely different place.
Mm,
And it's because of all this mix of influences.
yeah.
And I think that's what's cool about this EP in particular is we hear where the Long Riders get their influence. And like even the cover shot of that EP, do you mind holding it up?
No, I wanted to talk about that too.
So the cover shot is shot by photographer Ed Culver, and it's purposeful because Sid Griffin said about the cover, he said, I told Ed that I would buy anything if it looked 1966, if it looked like 66. So the look, the way it was shot, the black and white, all of it, it just screams 60s.
Mm-hmm.
It screams late 60s. And so that psychedelic link it runs throughout this, but you definitely hear this very unique sound throughout this entire EP. And I agree with you, Jeff. This EP makes me want to hear more.
Yep. Yeah.
And I think it does the job that you said.
Yeah. Very well said. Very well said. I totally
Some days it comes easily, but some days it doesn't. All right, but Jeff, I do want you to point out something because Jeff is the king of he's a completist. So this EP, the one you were holding, is the PVC release, right?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
but there is a variation.
There is. Yes. And I think you'll only notice it if you're British. Because when I
Okay.
look at it, no. So the British version on Zippo Records also includes a tune called "The Trip."
Right.
So they extended it from a 5-song EP to a 6-song EP. So we'll talk a little bit about "The Trip," but you're absolutely right. If you want 10-5-60, I don't think we've even mentioned the name of the EP yet.
No, not yet.
If you want 10-5-60 in its full length form, you get the Zippo British version and that includes that extra track, The Trip, which is a good transition, I think, to talk about the lineup. So
Yes.
the lineup of this band has, of course, Greg Souders on drums, and apparently, if you read the credits, Smiles as well. So that's one thing he's credited for. Stephen McCarthy and Sid Griffin, who all three play on every single Long Riders record there is. But also, I wanted to note that the bassist it was a guy named Des Brewer, which I don't know much about at all. When I tried to look up credits, musical credits, all I come up with is the Long Riders. So I did learn that after the EP was produced and the band was getting ready to tour, Des was not interested in taking going on the road with the band, so they started to change bass players, and they went through a couple bass players and ended up with um, our favorite, right? So it didn't come. So the trip um, doesn't include Des Brewer, so I think that was something that was recorded later, um, but they've included it on the Zippo version as well. So
Well, I
yeah,
think we'll, when we have an opportunity to talk to Sid and to Stephen McCarthy,
yeah,
which we're just putting that on our wish list. When we have an opportunity to ask them, we can ask about Des and how that transitioned over the subsequent releases.
right, yeah,
But
for sure, for
yeah.
sure.
All right, Jeff. So we're gonna start the sandwich.
Oh, so let's listen to some music.
Okay. So let's start with your pick.
All right. Well, I'm gonna reclaim my spot as the as the lead off track person.
Sounds good. I give you my title.
So yeah, so that was something that I picked quite often, and the last couple times you've picked the title track. So "Join My Gang" is the lead off track on the EP, written by Sid Griffin. But what I like about this, and I'm pretty sure I'm right about this, Stephen McCarthy sings the verses and Sid sings the choruses. So I like how they do that duet trade off on the vocals. And
Yeah.
I can say this about every song on this EP, but I love the guitars. There's um, some of the vocal stuff at the end that I really appreciate too with the two of them. But yeah, I just like them trading off. And the song is "Join My Gang." So I think it's a great way to start off the EP because it's like join in with us. And the lyrics are kind of funny because it sounds like it's singing to somebody who's a little bit more on the straight edge than they are, because it says, you don't like to throw bricks, you don't like to do this, you don't like to do this, but we're the tough rough guys. I think that's fun, and it's a great way to start off, and almost like an invitation, join my gang. So I thought it would be a great way to start off the music. It's the first song on the EP, and I say let's jam.
Let's go.
We tried to tell you how much we really want you, but you didn't listen.
Sounds like an 60s song at the end, the way it ends with the tambourine and
Oh my God. But see that guitar, that bridge, it sounds so bird, so psychedelic. That's how you start off.
right.
Title track. I'm with you.
Pull
I'm with
in. Join our gang.
Join our gang. Okay, we're in.
So your first pick.
Yeah, my first pick, it's no secret that I'm a big Stephen McCarthy fan. And I think not only do I really enjoy his vocals, but I think he writes a damn good song. And so I picked track 2 from side A, which is I Don't Care What's Right, I Don't Care What's Wrong. And I wanted to read this little blurb about it. Where someone is quoted as saying that you don't they say you don't know what's right, but it's I don't know what's right.
Right.
But in this it became a signature song and a signpost pointing to Americana and alt country, two phrases that didn't exist in 1983 and that were not yet a musical genre on radio or in print. So really this song I think is this bridge moment. Because you definitely hear this is a country track. I mean, like the country influences throughout, but it elevates it. It takes it in a different direction. And I think that's why I like this track a lot. I mean, and then it's a Stephen McCarthy track. So, it's just good. But, and then the lyrics are really, I like the lyrics on this. And I'm going to leave you with this before we go into the song. I don't need your help. I don't need advice. Don't try and tell me how to run my life. It's just kind of like, I don't care. Just go. But I like that it's this statement, and then it uses like maybe like a very typical country theme, of like kind of rebelling, kind of walking away. But it takes in a whole different direction, and it's all due to the arrangement, in my opinion. So I don't care what's right. I don't care what's wrong.
I don't care what's right. I don't care what's wrong. I just spend my time trying to get along. I don't need your help. I don't need advice. I don't need no lesson on how to run my life. Do what you want, it's all the same. Just count me out of your own game. Well, I'm a fool, but that's alright. Rather be the fool, yeah, than get hung up on rules that fit too tight. You know just what's right. You know just what's wrong. It's all black and white. You knew all along. I don't need your help. I don't need advice. Don't you try and tell me how to
Yeah, that one's got some twang.
Man, but you know what makes it different? Like I'm listening and I think, okay, so what makes this really different than any country song? Like I grew up in the 70s and you know, my family, yes, Panamanian, Iranian, we watch Hee Haw. And so I remember Hee Haw, you know, and I remember Buck Owens and I remember, you know, I remember the artists that went on there. I go, okay, so what makes this different than that? Than the, you know, pop country that I knew or the mainstream country. And some of the guitar riffs are very different on that song. And that drum, okay, Greg Souders in that drum, that's a rock drum on a country track.
Yeah, good
In my
thought.
head, okay?
Yeah, no.
Please, okay, let's just state it for the record. Soraya is not a musician. I don't know nothing about nothing. I just know what it sounds like to me.
Yeah, no, good point. Yeah, it doesn't have that typical, well, one of the typical drum beats that you usually hear. A lot of times they'll do a marching kind.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Where
yeah,
it's just a
yeah.
little more subtle. Like I'm thinking like oh, the guy with, sorry, I'm gonna go off on a tangent. No, I'll stop it right there. Yes. Yes, it's the drums I remember classical country where the drums are a little more subtle. Here it's like a driving force, and so it's more like a rock drum,
Yeah,
funk drum.
yeah,
And so it changes it, but man, Stephen McCarthy, I love that. He can write a good song.
yeah. And we should note that the bass player Des Brewer has a co-write credit
Yes.
on this. So I think it's the only track that he has credit for writing anything, if I'm not mistaken. So
because then the next track 3 on side A, which is my second pick, is 10-5-60. So I'm taking back from you the title track, which you tend to like too, but this one is credited as written by Sid Griffin and Barry Shank.
Oh.
So again, we've got 2 tracks with, you know, at least 2 people either not currently in the lineup or people that were brought in, you know, for certain tracks.
Yeah.
So I picked 10-5-60 because it is a very gritty song. Like I remember hearing it and going, Sid sounds different on this song. And it's just, there's this grittiness, there's this toughness to his vocals on this song. And man, the guitar parts are ridiculous, especially that intro. So let's listen to it and we'll talk about it after.
Yeah. I've got a question for you after it's over.
Okay, doke.
Well, I'll ask you now and then you
Sure.
can answer later. What is 10-5-60?
Cue the track.
Dancing, make 'em walk the yard.
feedback there at the end. Nice touch.
Great. I don't know what 10560 is.
I don't
I
need it.
thought for a hot second that it was a reference to Sid's birthday, but he's September 18, 1955.
Oh.
So he's 2 days before me. Just
Oh.
FYI. But I'm like, I don't know. And I thought it might be an idiomatic expression to mean like 24/7, 365, something similar, but I don't know. So if it's somebody else's birthday, I want to know who who it is. But I haven't been able to figure out what the 10560 refers to.
Yeah.
Adding it onto the list of questions to ask Sid Griffin and Stephen McCarthy.
Yeah, and I tried doing a little research on that, and I couldn't find out anything. And it talks about like partying and having a good time. And so I thought, I don't know, I thought it had something to do with music timing or something, but I didn't even think of it as a date. I bet it has something to do with some kind of date. October 5th, 1960.
I
Hmm.
mean, it's not anything that I can reference it to like in pop culture because like the Beatles on Sullivan is later.
Yeah.
Kennedy is later.
Yeah.
So I don't know what 10560 is, but maybe Sid one day will come on our podcast and tell us himself.
Yeah, he did mention that he'll be on sometime, so we'll see. So let's write it down for for a question to ask him. But I
Yes.
did want to go back and talk about a little bit about Barry Shank, the co-writer
Yeah,
on this.
please.
He also co-wrote Ivory Tower on Native Sons, on Long Riders Native Sons, and him and Sid were bandmates in the Unclaimed for a little bit. So
Oh.
yeah, they have a little bit of a musical history together. I found out when I was researching. I didn't know that, but I know that oftentimes when they play Ivory Tower, that Sid will mention it live from the stage that about them being old friends. But I didn't make the connection with the Unclaimed and this track in particular. So yay! Okay,
Alright.
so my
Last
last
track?
yeah. So And She Rides is the track that I picked. And I wanted to mention something about sequencing with this because we've played all of side A with
Yeah.
our first three picks. And then side B on this PVC version has two tracks, And She Rides, which is what I'm gonna play, and Born to Believe in You is the last track, which is auto harp based.
Mm-hmm.
Which reminds me of being a kid, and my music teacher, Mrs. Fountain, would come in with an auto harp and sing mostly old folk songs like "I'm Being Eaten by a Boa Constrictor" and John Jacob Jingleheimer Smith. But we would also do Maxwell's Silver Hammer, the Beatles. So,
Oh
anyways, so that's
wow.
whenever I hear auto harp, I think of Mrs. Fountain and
My fourth grade teacher, auto harp, and we'd sing a lot of folk songs.
Oh,
Yep.
nice, nice. So that is how the EP closes out, Born to Believe in You. So And She Rides is the first track on side B of the two. But if you get the album on CD, if you get it on the Frontier record, they actually change the sequencing a little bit. So 10560 is included on the Native Son CD from Frontier, and it ends. The last three songs on the CD are "Born to Believe in You," "The Trip," which is the bonus track from Zippo, and it ends with "And She Rides." So it's very interesting to me because I think of "And She Rides" as a better closing track than what is actually on the EP, "Born to
Mm,
Believe in You." So it's interesting that when we've talked to Lisa Fancher from Frontier,
right.
when she put this together, how she used that as the closing track. And if you get the CD that Sid put out on his Prima record label. So this is an expanded version of Native Sons and 10560, and it's got some bonus tracks also. He also changed the sequencing. It doesn't end out the CD because there's bonus tracks after the EP. So it starts with Native Sons, then goes to 10560, and then some bonus tracks. But when he put the sequencing on here, he also sequenced Born to Believe in You, The Trip, and then And She Rides. So
Wow.
just
So then
Yeah, just interesting. And there's also a Zippo version of the CD, and that version has they stick to
The
the
original.
EP, so it ends with "Born to Believe in You" rather than "And She Rides." All that to say, "And She Rides" is my track. It's a fun track, and I like it as a closing track. Rather than Born to Believe in You, which is a fun song in and of itself. But and she rides, so I say we give it a listen.
Let's go.
And she comes right where you are, and she rides by on a star, and she comes away, and she rides today, and she rides. See the people in the square, see them all just waiting there, and she comes away, and she rides today, and she rides, and she rides. All the little children stepping down the street. You never tell them she's the one to meet.
my favorite bass part on the EP was the song. And there's I didn't know if you could hear it, but there's this little keyboard part in there, and it
Uh-huh.
sounds like it's credited to Stephen McCarthy, but it kind of reminds me of something like Will Glenn would play.
Oh, I think you're right on.
It
Spot on.
felt like that at the end there. It had a little tiny bit of a Rain Parade feel, little tiny bit.
I was gonna say it reminds me of quite a few Rain Parade tracks.
Oh,
In that it just there's this kind of it's not a freak out at the end, but it is this
kind of,
kind of
yeah,
melding of sounds, and it just takes you off on a trip.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Very psychedelic. It was psychedelic. E.
Yep. Yeah. So in my mind, I think I like how the CD closes out
Yeah.
with that as a closing track rather than Born to Believe in You. And you mentioned that it's kind of a trip. So the trip, which is the bonus track that's included on the Zippo release, I wanted to read a little bit about the bass player situation that I found online. So Des Brewer, I read that he wasn't committed to touring and the band wanted to
Right.
tour, so that's when he left. And then I guess he was replaced by a guy named Don McCall, who I don't know who that is, but apparently he only lasted 3 months and then he was asked to leave because, according to Greg, his playing and my drumming never quite clicked. Um, so that happens. It's just chemistry, right? Oh,
Yes.
and I should mention that And She Rides, credited as co-written by Sid Griffin and Greg Souders. So back to the trip. So I guess that after they went through Des Brewer and Don McCall, that Tom Stevens, who we know as the bass player for the Long Riders, our good buddy, rest in peace, that he became the new bass player shortly after this EP came out in January of '84. And he was recommended by friends, and I guess he didn't even have to try out just by his recommendation alone. And they really needed a bass player because they had some shows lined up in San Francisco, around the San Francisco area. They needed somebody quick. Tom was recommended. So history after that. So the trip has Tom Stevens playing bass rather than Des Brewer. So I'll add that after our outro music. We'll play the trip, and it's kind of a transition, right? Going from the EP lineup to the what became the true
Right.
Long Riders
One
lineup.
last thing about the trip. Um, it was recorded, you're right, it was recorded in February 1985 at the A&M Studios in Hollywood.
Nice.
So it's a bit of a time after
Yeah.
the initial recording of 10560. So
Yes. Yes.
yeah.
Great EP. I love it. And
Jeff, I think I'm coming around. I think I'm coming around to your point of view.
I don't know. I don't know.
I mean, there are EPs that I love, and there are some that are that I like the album better, the long form album better. But
Oh, that reminds me. When I first heard the terminology EP, I was very confused being raised in the album generation, right?
sure,
So I started getting heavily into music in the early 70s and had always bought albums. And then when I bought EP and I found out that it meant extended play, and I'm like, wait, I'm going from 10 to 12 songs to 3 to 8 songs. How is this extended? But of course, um, much before the album became the most popular format was the single. And that's how we are today with streaming. It's more of a single environment than it is
yeah,
an album environment. So if you compare the single format versus the EP, yes, it is extended from the single format. But when
absolutely.
you go from album to extended, I mean, it should have been called like the truncated version if you go from album,
Oh
and
my
then
gosh,
and then
that's
it would have
even
been a
worse.
yeah,
Like, give me the TV. Give me the Bengals
GT,
TV truncated version, please.
right? So
I
anyway,
like
so that was some confusion for me as a kid. But coming up next, we're gonna feature another of the Paisley Underground adjacent bands EP. So be sure to come back to listen to more EP as my phone rings.
You know it's Sid Griffin on the phone.
We'll get back to you, Sid. We'll get back to you.
Leave a message. Leave a message.
Yeah.
All right, but you know what, Jeff? This was fun.
Yes.
And I'm looking forward to digging into the other ones too. So, mi
Yes.
gente, a gruyer.
Groove on, Paisley people.
Tried so hard to remember where it used to be. All this running and hiding away from authority. Pack up all your belongings. Won't you come with me? With his brothers and sisters, no control of his destiny. Yeah, 'cause he made that trip. He's not going back. He kinda likes it here, where his family's at. Now somebody else is walking down the road for the very same reason. Seems so close you can touch it, or they shoot you down when you think about leaving. So once you make a decision, there's no turning back. Once you make a decision, boy, I tell you it's where it's at. Yeah, 'cause he made that trip. He's not going back. He kinda likes it here, where his family's at. Oh, Stevie was a bit younger than he was before. Somewhat